Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to 2 Minutes to Review. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins. New albums, classic albums. You click the picture. This is arguably one of, if not the biggest album that is going to be dropping in 2021. Talking about the brand new one from Greta Van Fleet, The Battle at Garden's Gate.
That's a long title.
It could be a lot longer.
It's true. This episode, we are focusing on the Michigan rock band's second full-length album. And yeah, like Matt said, there's a lot of buzz behind it because, yeah, they had a few EPs and then a first full-length album. This album is really going to help determine whether or not they're the real deal. So yeah, a lot of anticipation. So much so, I'm just eager to get right into it. But I can't without giving a special shout out to our sponsor, Lucky 13 Beard Co. They make some incredible made-to-order beard oils and balms right in our home state of New Jersey, and me and Matt just could not be more proud to be sponsored by them.
Really great stuff. If you've never tried any sort of men's facial care products for your beard, you owe it to yourself to at least give it a try. You're going to smell great. They put out new scents all the time. And with our code EFP10, if you head on over to etsy.com/shop/Lucky13, the number, Beard Co., and put that in, you're going to get 10% off of your order. You owe it to yourself. Ladies, you owe it to that special somebody in your life, whoever it may be, that has some facial hair and it feels just a little on the rough side. Give this a shot. I guarantee you're going to love Lucky 13's beard balms and oils.
No pressure, ladies, but trust us, you'll be thanking us as well. So, Matt,
yes,
I feel like we might have to fight over this. I would love to just get this off my chest already. My thoughts on this album.
I'll keep it way down inside, and I'll give my whole lot of love in a little bit.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's starting.
Oh, you know what? Fine. I'll give you that one. All right. Count me down.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Let's start off on a positive note. Truth be told, this was actually a pretty pleasant album to listen to. I hate to admit it, but I can definitely hear the band evolving and trying to expand their horizons, especially on songs like Stardust Chords and The Weight of Dreams. I actually really did appreciate them incorporating a lot more of orchestral prog elements instead of just being a standard rock album. And again, I hate to admit it, songs like Heat Above and Caravel sound less like a straight carbon copy of Zeppelin and more like Rush's early 70s work. I mean, albeit less technical or complex than Rush at their peak. Think more before Rush figured out what they actually wanted to sound like. But still, I get it. There's some prog elements there. And while I never really said that the band completely sucked at their instruments, this album proves that they're actually very exceptionally talented musicians. And dare I say, I think they actually upped their game in the talent department on this album. They definitely took their, I feel like, I can actually say, wow, Jake, the guitarist, he's pretty damn good. Now here comes the problem. As hard as they might be trying to get away from the Zeppelin connections, this album does not change my mind at how much Greta Van Fleet sounds like Led Zeppelin. In fact, I dare you to tell me with a straight face that Built by Nations, Tears of Rain, and Age of Machine, or, a lot of songs in this album, frankly, I dare you to tell me that they do not sound like a Zeppelin deep cut. The truth is, I can't shake off the feeling that I'm listening to a bunch of B-sides from my favorite 70s rock bands. It's extremely well produced and naturally in fact, if you had told me that this album was actually from the 70s, I'd believe you. It's a really well produced album. But I just still don't hear that game-changing earworm of a single that makes me forget about all of their influences. Admittedly, My Way Soon is almost there. But with that said, I actually am impressed with how well of a produced album this is. And hearing how the band evolves on this album leaves me just a tad more comfortable with Greta Van Fleet serving as many young fans, quote, gateway band. Just still don't see them as that unique.
And we have a time locked in. What would you give them on this album for a star rating?
Out of 5 stars, I'd give them a 3. I have to admit, I'm really surprised. I wouldn't say this is an enjoyable album that I want to be listening to on repeat, but it was pleasant to listen to. I mean, I think the best way to describe it is if a film producer couldn't afford the rights to include a Led Zeppelin song in their gritty gangster film that takes place in the 70s, they could use this album as a soundtrack. And that's actually a compliment because, and I think we kind of go into this in the Am I Missing Something episode, but a lot of bands try to sound like Led Zeppelin replicas or just 70s bands in general. This album proves that they are the most successful at sounding like those 70s bands naturally. And I think my only real issue with the band at this point is I just wish they would own up to that. So that's
fair enough.
Maybe I was a little bit more harsh about the comparisons in Am I Missing Something before people go, that's not true, you shat on them about their playing. Yeah, and I granted every time I still stand by how I don't think they're as great as Led Zeppelin or really most 70s bands, but this album I actually think from a sound wise, maybe not live performance wise, but from a sound wise, they are better at capturing that 70s feel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's my thoughts. Matt, are you ready to contribute your review? Are you starting to second guess your thoughts now? Because I made so much sense.
I'm ready to go out on the tiles on this one.
Oh,
Just trying to think of more Zeppelin puns.
yeah, I was about to try to. I'm like, nah, they're not gonna. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dazed and confused right now, and I'm trying to put things together. Boom.
Let's get on this highway to hell. No, wait, that's the wrong band.
Oh, wrong band. Who they say they sound more alike than Led Zeppelin, which is funny. Anyway, let me know when you're ready.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1, go!
So with Greta Van Fleet on the new album, I really feel that they have firmly cemented their sound into that 70s prog. And with that video that they released, that live video that they released for Heat Above, yeah, you can't really argue with that. What they didn't do with the 70s prog sound that I really like is that they didn't overly use like guitar solos or keyboard solos or just tons and tons of just extra playing to play, but rather what they did was they enhanced that prog feeling with large reverbs and thundering soundscapes. You can really hear that that's where the money was put into on this album, with excellent production from Greg Kurstin, who actually did the Foo Fighters' latest album. And I really do enjoy the tone that the album sets on tracks like Broken Bells, Age of Machine, and Caravel. And I really do like My Way Soon. But the problem here, it's not that the band comes from sounding too much like another band whose initials are LZ, even though they distinctly built the intro to Built by Nations from Whole Lotta Love. But, you know, they play it way too safe far too many times on this album. And I really found myself looking for that extra swagger moment that they brought on tracks like Highway Tune, Safari Song, or When the Curtain Falls. But it really doesn't ever get back to a point where My Way Soon feels like it actually kind of belongs on this album. Everything else is just so big and vibrant and open, and they have all of these other really great, intricate tracks, but it never really evolves into those other types of songs. But in conclusion, at a running time of about 64 minutes, this album is really an album listener's wet dream, and it's not meant to be consumed in sporadic sittings, but rather from front to back as a piece of art put together one track at a time.
And the time is locked in. So, out of 5 stars, what's your ranking?
3.5.
So, it sounds like you were also relatively surprised by this album in a positive way. I don't want to say good way, but positive way.
I'm not going to say I was surprised because, like I mentioned, they really put together something I think that you feel is special when you're listening to it. The problem, like I went back to, is that they played it way too safe. They never really gave you what really felt like to be that true knockdown single, I think, like you were talking about. Because when you think about what they've done up to this point with Highway Tunes, Safari Song, When the Curtain Falls, these are their memorable singles. I really feel like you can kind of lose some of their songs on this album probably, when you're listening to the radio and they come on the radio, if you're listening to any of these, is kind of just, it's not, they're enjoyable if you like Greta Van Fleet, but it's not anything that makes you really sit down and take notice, like, who the hell are these guys? Unless you really have that, I hate to keep saying it, that Zeppelin ear, and you're like, whoa, wait a second, who is this? Especially if Built by Nations really becomes a single at any point in the future, you're going to be like, wait a second, that's Whole Lot of Love. No, wait, it's not. Who am I listening to? That's my problem, is I'm waiting for that, like I said, the swagger to come back. I'm waiting for them to say, yeah, we're here. Yeah, we're Greta Van Fleet. And who cares if we sound like Zeppelin? We sound really damn good. And they really just built up this big, exuberant soundscape of an album, which I bet if you, and this is a picture that I'm going to paint because I was thinking about this while I was listening to it, that this is probably going to be somebody at like 10 o'clock on like a Sunday night or a Saturday night, sitting down with their favorite adult beverage, strapping on some high-end headphones, and just listening and just zoning out. That's what this album is. I hate to say this because all the kids are saying it. It's a mood.
And you know what, though? That's a beautiful picture that you painted. And I don't hate seeing myself do that with this album. Like, I could picture myself just going on the road, driving smooth. Like, it's a smooth sounding album. But to your point, there's no real standout single. And to your point, too, like, I wish they did just own up to be like, yeah, we sound like Zeppelin. But guess what? So do a million other bands, and I bet you we do it better. Because guess what? This album proves that they do it better.
And there is a lot, and I think we were talking about this when we, like months ago, when I think we first found out that the album was going to be released, that I actually found some other bands online, even on Spotify, that sound like Greta Van Fleet and sound like Zeppelin, but they're not memorable. Greta Van Fleet's the one that's memorable. But you need to do something, either own up to the fact that, and this is going down a road we didn't want to go down, and I'm going to make this point and one more point, and then I'm done with this. It's that they need to own up to either being influenced by Zeppelin in some way, shape, or form, because you were. Let's just get past it at this point and say, yeah, we are. So what? Here we are doing it, and you know what? You're talking about us. Great. Done. Move on. The second thing, if you're really trying to move away or even distance yourselves from Led Zeppelin, why would you go ahead and release 4 tattoos that for the 4 singles that you actually released? Why would you do that? You know that's going to be a direct comparison to the 4 tattoos or the 4 symbols that the Led Zeppelin members use. Come on.
Did you get Led Zeppelin 4 vibes while listening to this album, or is it just me? Or maybe even just later day Zeppelin vibes?
A little bit later. It definitely wasn't early Zeppelin. It was more, I think, In Through the Outdoor.
Yeah.
Maybe a little Zeppelin 4.
Well, you know what? Oh, yeah, definitely not like Black Dog or Rock and Roll, but like, I mean, I definitely heard them trying to do a Stairway to Heaven throughout the album, which again, they actually come close. There's just a few things missing from that game-changing song. Before we move on to find out who actually won in this little game of ours, we asked the question, am I missing something about Greta Van Fleet over 2 years ago at this point? Wow, I feel old. Listening to this album, do you feel like you get it a little bit more?
I feel like we know a little bit more about who Greta Van Fleet is at this point. I think when we first did this, I forget if they just released the first album or if it was I think we still had just the EPs, sometime in that general vicinity. And it still felt like, and I hate to say this because a lot of people really gave us some flack on the episode for calling them kids. But at that point, by the way,
thank you for listening to all those who gave us flack.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. But I feel like they were releasing EPs and they were touring. You know, anybody can release songs and just tour. So they did kind of feel like kids. This feels like a proper grown-up album. And I feel like we understand who they want to be as artists a little bit more because, like we've been talking about, they've cemented themselves so hard in the 70s at this point and have been releasing videos that are very late 60s, 70s inspired, even sometimes to a fault with that video for, what was it, Heat Above? Yeah, the Heat Above video. Yeah, the one where they dressed up and looked like the Bee Gees. I don't get that. but there were some 70s pop vibes on this album. But am I missing something at this point? I don't think I am, because I feel like I understand them better at this point. And I feel like we understand them better because there has been just so much more that they've given us. And we were waiting because they kept saying that on their next album, they were going to do like this game-changing sound. It wasn't game-changing necessarily. It was an evolution of where you wanted to go. You went a little bit on the deeper side of what tracks could be instead of just churning out simple singles.
Honestly, I think you said it best. Before, it sounded like kids trying to play Led Zeppelin music. This sounds like a grown-up album. That might sound like I'm knocking the band down, but I feel like we heard that this band has fully grown up. They might still sound a lot like Led Zeppelin and the 70s rock influences, but I don't hear kids on this album. I actually hear very talented musicians, which is a huge compliment to them. Now, before everyone goes, this is called 2 minutes to review. Why is it so long? The portion of the episode is us competing to give a 2-minute review. So now here we are to find out who between the two of us, Matt and I, gave the longest review in under 2 minutes. So Matt, what was my time?
Well, your time comes in at par for the course for you. You're at 2.5 minutes, 2:36.
Gotta be honest, I'm a little surprised it was even that less. Well then, Matt, you'll be disappointed because you literally came 1 second past 2 minutes. If you had just cut out, if you had just did a little less breathing, you could have just got it at the cutoff mark.
That's all right. I feel close. Like I got everything out that I wanted to get out about this. And
do you feel as good as I do?
I feel good for 2 reasons. I feel good because I know that I am giving the right review on this album, and I'm not comparing them to Zeppelin because I know that that's what a lot of people expect when you do a review like this. I know that there's going to be some people like, well, you did talk about Zeppelin and you made Zeppelin puns. Well, yeah, guess what? You have to at some point with these guys because it's obvious. One song freaking sounds just like Whole Lotta Love. I'm not even going to, deny it. But I feel like I got everything out that I wanted to get out. And I feel like I gave them as much credit as I could on this album up to a point, because then there's the flaws that I talked about. So I'm good with my review.
Same here. Well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with us, maybe even a few who agree with us, but we want you to give us your honest feedback. Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel for more podcasts and videos like this. And again, a very, very, very special thank you to Lucky 13 Beard Co.
Make sure you log on their website, etsy.com/shop/Lucky 13 Beard Co. Use the code EFP10 at checkout. Get all of your small batch beard balms and oils 10% off with the code EFP10. And I cannot wait to see the comment section.
It's going to be fun. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.